going on, guys? Today I want to do an audio commentary instead of a video because, to touch on something different. Yes. So, let's talk about a topic that I really want to get this out of the way. I recently did a video, not I think last year, not recently, but the whole Devil May Cry game reboot stuff, and at the end I ranted about a reboot, reboots and prequels. And today I want to touch on reboots and prequels. Now, sure, there's a lot of games out there that make sense in some aspects of making prequels. Now, I can understand like a game like Metal Gear Solid Rising being a prequel to Metal Gear Solid 4 and a sequel to Metal Gear Solid 2. The story of Raiden, takes place, like the of Rising. It makes sense because it shows, how he was formed as like a robotic ninja, I guess. But we want to show more of that. But I want to say something now. I've been a Metal Gear Solid fan since when Metal Gear Solid, when it first came out. When it first came out, I was in love with it. And I thought Metal Gear Solid was the actual game to be to start of the start of the story, right? But I was wrong. There was Metal Gear and then Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. And that's fine because I didn't know those games. Those games make sense. So I guess Metal Gear and then Metal Gear 2 came first, and then Metal Gear Solid came next to the story. Same thing, Metal Gear Solid 2, and like that. I was thinking that Kojima was looking, as of a story, it looks really good. But then came Metal Gear Solid 3, and I thought to myself, Metal Gear Solid 3 it's got to be a sequel to Metal Gear Solid 2. Come on. But it's not a sequel because Big Boss is the protagonist of this game, Solid Snake's father. And I was like, at first I was like, this got to be Solid Snake. This can't be another guy. But it is. It's Big Boss, and wow. So Metal Gear Solid 3, and then I was like, I didn't care at the time because I like to play the game. And now if you think about it, shouldn't Metal Gear started in the story of Big Boss instead of Solid Snake? Sure, I know Solid Snake is the hero. The Solid Snake is the main character of any Metal Gear Solid game, except for 3 and Peace Walker and Portable Ops. I understand that, but I mean, of course, it's Solid Snake. We want to know about Big Boss's past, and it's cool and all. In a way, I kind of like it, but in a way, I mean, it's a prequel. I mean, whatever. I don't know. I guess it's okay. Another game that I love this franchise. I love it so much because of the story as well. Remember, these prequels and reboots are based are based by stories. The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda, I mean, look where we started in the Nintendo days. We had The Legend of Zelda and and I believe Zelda 2, Link's The Adventures of Link. And those are two great games. Great games. One is the overworld view, and the other one it is like the same, except when you go to another village or encounter an enemy, it's a side scroll feel of it. And so yeah, I mean, I like both games. They're cool. And we have A Link to a Past, and A Link to a Past, of course isn't, I thought it was sequel. I thought it was a sequel, but then again, I started to think later on, it's A Link to the Past, so I don't think it should be a sequel to this game. And then Ocarina of Time came, and Ocarina of Time, I thought that was going to be the sequel, but it's not the sequel. It's actually, as referred as Miyamoto, he says that that game is the first story out of the Zelda game, because of how Hyrule was created by the three goddesses. So, then again, I think The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time is the first game in the story. And then comes a bunch of other Zelda games: Link's Awakening, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, The Minish Cap, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, all these other games that came out. Majora's Mask being the sequel to Ocarina of Time. But then it's funny that in The Legend of Zelda has two sequels instead of one, which is very weird because of the split timeline and of the alternate endings when you see in the in the Legend of Zelda games. But there's a lot of other games that are making us reboots or prequels, like Tomb Raider, DMC. That's right, I gotta touch on DMC. There's other games that are making as reboots. Kid Icarus Uprising, but Kid Icarus Uprising makes sense of somewhat of a sense because Kid Icarus Uprising hasn't been made as like other games ever. Like until like the first Kid Icarus game was on Nintendo. They didn't bother making a sequel. They didn't bother making they didn't bother making other games that touch on the story of Kid Icarus. So that's sad because Kid Icarus it looks like a great game. It looks fun, and I'm glad that finally, after more than 20 years, I believe it is, they're making a Kid Icarus reboot because it is Kid Icarus, but it's called Kid Icarus Uprising, and it isn't. I don't think it is a sequel. Let me touch back on Zelda. Now the critically announced, I won't say critically announced, but I think it's because there's so many speculation, but whatever. The Skyward Sword, which is gonna look amazing. I'm thinking now. I'm baffling myself because I read on the Zelda Wikia, the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword will be a prequel of Ocarina of Time. Now I'm thinking, is Skyward Sword? It doesn't make any sense because Link is an adult. Sure, remember the two split timelines that I was talking about? That one timeline is the child timeline, and the other one is the adult timeline. I haven't referred that in this video, but now I am. And Link in the Skyward Sword is an adult. That's weird. But I'm thinking to myself, is this Link? The Link not from it cannot be from Ocarina of Time, so it has to be like 100 years from the events before Ocarina of Time. It has to be. Come on, I mean, if the Wind Waker says that it happened 100 years after the events of Ocarina of Time, then this game has to happen before 100 years of the past, and the Skyward Sword before turning into the Master Sword, if you really think about it. So we don't know about that. I can't wait to get my hands on this game though, because this game is gonna be amazing. One true amazing game. And if I heard that Ganon's not gonna be the antagonist in the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. It's gonna be another villain, and he looks cool. But I'm thinking to myself, is there gonna be a Dark Link? Because if it is, that's gonna be amazing. That I need to see. I need to see a Dark Link in Skyward Sword because that's gonna be truly epic. Truly epic. I cannot wait. So that kind of is gonna bother somewhat of the chronological order because of the Dark Link situation, but we don't know that. Now, there's other games also that I want to touch on, like the Metroid games, being Metroid Other M. Even though I never played the game, even the Metroid games kind of confuses you this timeline because the first game being Metroid is the actual The actual first game on the with the story, the first time making a game with a story. And then there's other games that like Metroid Prime and Metroid. I believe Metroid Prime goes after Metroid, if I'm not mistaken, and then Metroid Prime 2, Metroid. I think Metroid Prime Hunters goes after 1, and then after Hunters is 2, and then 3, and then we have the Super Metroids, and then Metroid Other M and Metroid Fusion. If I'm missing any other games, I'm sorry, but whatever. And this is like not a hard timeline, but it is a little bit confusing. But the main problem about prequels. The thing is with prequels is that we're getting tired of prequels. Look, as fans, that we love games, that we love these games. We are interested of the story, and we want the story to be going forward. And come on, I understand there's a lot of plot holes that are missing in games, so that's why they make prequels out of it. But if you're gonna make a game, if a developer is gonna make a game, they should start. The first game should be like the actual story and not bother making reboots, because so they can work on the story. One perfect example that I want to touch on is Mega Man X. Mega Man X does not, I don't think, has any prequels in my understanding, because Mega Man X starts as this Mega Man coming from the 20XX and battling over these Reploids, these Maverick hunters. No, I'm sorry, he's a Maverick hunter against these Mavericks. Excuse me. And it goes on X2, X3, X4, and I don't think you really see any direct prequels. You see sequels, sequel after sequel after sequel. You see Mega Man X, Mega Man X2, and so on. And that's why KIG fully didn't bother working on these Mega Man X games going as prequels, because he knows damn well that to him the game comes first and then the story. That's what it looks like. But the story is really good too. So if you think about it, I think it's the story behind Zero and the story behind Sigma. So that's pretty much what the Mega Man X is all about. Sigma and Zero. Mostly Sigma, because Sigma controlling the Reploids, becoming enemies of their own, and that's crazy. Also, games like Resident Evil, Kingdom Hearts, even though I'm not a big fan of Kingdom Hearts, and Final Fantasy also have some sorts of prequels. Kingdom Hearts being Birth by Sleep being the first game in the story. That's crazy, because I thought Kingdom Hearts was the first game in the story. But then we have all these other games, 352 Half in the Days, Chain of Memories, and of course Birth by Sleep, and then Kingdom Hearts 2. And now a lot of fans are eager to anticipate Kingdom Hearts 3. And Kingdom Hearts 3, even though I'm not a big fan of it, needs to come out so they can complete the chapter in this Kingdom Hearts saga. But also we have Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy being that we have now since Final Fantasy 13 has been released, we have Final Fantasy Versus 13 and Final Fantasy 13 2. Now I'm thinking Versus 13 has to be the prequel to 13. Maybe, or maybe it's just maybe it has nothing to do with 13. We don't know that, but probably Versus 13 may be a sequel, or it may be another adaptation or another game of 13. So we don't know about that. Final Fantasy 7 also made a prequel of Crisis Core. I think Final Fantasy 7 should have been the story of Zack and Cloud, and then in Final Fantasy 7 Crisis Core, we see the continuation of Cloud facing against Sephiroth and the revenge of oh, and Cloud's revenge of Zack. So of Zack's death. Of course, of and by the way, it was kind of sad that Zack died that way. I mean, damn. And then we have other games like other movies or games like Advent Children and the anime Last Order and Dirge of Cerberus, because I think Dirge of Cerberus, I don't know if it follows the timeline of Final Fantasy VII, or if it's just another game of Vincent's story. And Resident Evil, we had, I think Resident Evil 0 being like, I guess, the only game that is prequel. I don't know if it is, or if it is a remake. I don't know if it's a prequel or a remake. I'm not so sure. But Resident Evil most of the time was more sequels than prequels. Resident Evil 2 was a sequel. Resident Evil 3 was a sequel. Code Veronica was a sequel, I believe. And these other Resident Evil games like Dead Aim and Outbreak, and then Resident Evil 4 and 5, of course. So it was mostly sequels or other stories that are not pertaining to the Resident Evil. I don't know if they're canon to the Resident Evil storyline. I don't know, but I think it is followed by the timeline. So if Game Trailers has a timeline in the Resident Evil retrospective, then there's got to be canon to somewhat of the story because of the viruses. So yeah, that's that I want to touch on. Now the last game that I want to touch on is Devil May Cry. Yes, I'm a huge fan of Devil May Cry. Huge. And Devil May Cry was a game that I talked about in the previous videos that I show my games that I have Devil May Cry, blah blah blah. The whole craziness there. And when this game that just came out 2 years ago, last year? What was it? 2 years ago? It was last year. I'm sorry, because I'm really lost with that video. And wow, when I saw this trailer, I did a review on it, and I was so pissed. And recently they did another trailer that I'm gonna work on in a future video. And because I cannot stop talking about a game that I love, I really can't stop. A reboot of it's worse than it's a reboot / prequel. It's even worse. That wow, how would Capcom let another developer that is not from Japan, because the Devil May Cry games were strictly from Japan. This game is not from Japan. This game was made in the European regions. It was made in the United Kingdom. And this game has, to me, little what makes it a Devil May Cry game. Dante does not look like Dante, like I stated before. He does not smoke. He does not talk weird. He doesn't look like an emo ass. He doesn't look none of that. He doesn't look or sound like that. Come on. They just totally messed up the look of Dante. Now, if I'm thinking that if Dante started like that, that doesn't make any sense. Come on. I mean, how are you gonna have a voice like that then into like a normal voice? That's weird. How did he look like that and turn into a bleached blonde? Come on, that's weird too. It doesn't mean it cannot be the age. It cannot be the age factor because Devil May Cry 3 Dante looks young as shit. Come on, don't give me that. Devil May Cry 3 should have been the actual timeline, like the actual prequel, not Devil May Cry, not DMC. Excuse me, DMC. It's ridiculous. Come on, DMC, a game that I never thought that was gonna make another DMC game. Never thought of it, and this one hurt the DMC franchise. There's a lot of fans out there who are pissed still to this day. They're mad of the DMC game. They're mad at the character. They're mad at the developers. It's ridiculous, but you know, I mean, I should be concerned about this DMC game. I'm concerned about it because they killed a great character in Dante. So, and come on, I mean, what more should I say about this game? They killed it. They killed everything about this game. They killed it. The character, the Limbo City is like, what the hell? He's going to prison. He was in prison for I don't know what the hell, for some sort of reason. If he's a devil hunter, he shouldn't be arrested. Come on, man. He's better than that. Come on. He escapes trouble. He's a badass. Come on. He right here, he looks like a pathetic, weak loser of a game character. He is a pathetic loser of a game character. I don't know, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about the reboot / prequel conversation. I know that this, you know, I touch a lot of games that you know, I'm games that I love that are becoming reboots or prequels. You know, sure, there's also games like Tomb Raider. Even though I'm not a big fan of that game, Tomb Raider is a good game, but I'm not huge of that game. And you know, yeah, there's other games like Bionic Commando, and that's what made it as reboots. There's so a few games that made it to reboots. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Look at 5550, signing off.